Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jared. This is Justice's Waiting Room, a daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. You can follow me on Blue Sky. Likely alien pretty much everywhere. Crazy thing about how I process information. Um, I grew up a McDonald's kid. Okay. If you've ever been out of the country or downtown Chicago, Illinois, there used to be a world famous McDonald's with the Moon Man, a glass sculpture of the McDonald's Moon Man, and it used to serve pizza back when I was a kid. Telling you about how old I am. Um, and long story short, the thing was no matter what you'd done that day, there's nothing like an ice cold McDonald's Coca Cola, right? Once the science came out about the effects of like full flavored soda, I couldn't tell you that shit tastes like because I haven't had it since. Same thing with the rest of the food at McDonald's. Once you learn about food quality, you stop eating at fucking McDonald's. And then along the way, you become cognizant of how corporations pay their workers and promote their workers, and whether or not they promote unions, for example. And I'm pretty sure, correct me when I'm wrong, but one of the main reasons that you and I and everyone I know stopped supporting uh, Walmart was because they were union busting. So not only did Walmart pay like criminally low wages, but they also union bust. So there's a cause and effect, right? In fact, when I came home from the Marine Corps and got a job with Radio Shack and worked inside of a Sam's Club, the first day I had to watch an anti-union PSA, like a 30-minute video required by everyone who worked at a Walmart-owned facility uh, about um, organizing unions. Hmm. Or dissuading you from organizing unions. Uh, Saying like if you're found to be participating in labor activities, you could lose full time status. If you're found to have participated in labor activities, you prevent your promotion, shit like that. Hmm? Yep. And I stood up and I was just like, well, I'm not a Walmart employee, but like, like holy shit. Uh, Join a fucking union. What are we talking about? Like that's insane. It just like walked out of the half hour fucking video. Okay. And then again, it didn't take much for me to not shop at Walmart. Okay. Um, Whenever all this started, we kind of realized who was right there, who helped support this regime that is gonna hurt and kill so many people. Two-thirds of the people that were checked into Alligator Alcatraz are missing. What the fuck happened to all those people? And it's something that you gotta understand. The pendulum swings back harder the other way. So So I'm thinking about, um, for example, Mark Zuckerberg. Few days before the election, flies to Mar-a-Lago, gives Donald Trump money. Right? Stop using Facebook, Threads, IG, Messenger. Stay off WhatsApp. Obviously, Elon Musk. Twitter. Sell your Tesla. Divest from that stock. Holy shit, what a good call. Jeff Bezos, right? Amazon. We've known. Now, here's what I'll tell you Amazon has become, just like Starbucks, okay? People can change, organizations can change. You're fully capable of change. Remember, I got it fucking tattooed on me. Embrace change. The other one says take chances. Okay? In case you wondered. I got tattoos on both forearms. One says embrace change, one says take chances. Right? Morning, everybody. Zeke, Mike, Stacy, Danielle. And then Disney, which is ABC, ESPN, and a whole bunch of their affiliates, right? Mike said, I'm still looking for information on Elsie Naomi Barrios. Buenos dias. I love Spanish because, like, if you give a shit about it at all, it's actually a pretty easy language to understand and use. It's much easier than English. English is stupid. Once you start learning another language, it's like, God, our language sucks. Obviously, it depends on what kind of Spanish you're studying. They teach, because aren't there two? Well, I mean, there's like multiple dialects of Spanish, but there's two major dialects of Spanish, right? Like Catalan and it's like Spanish, and Mexican Spanish. But it's not called that because that's stupid. Mike said if you're in the Milwaukee area, we're protesting Wisconsin News 12 Mondays 11 a.m. to noon since they're an ABC affiliate. Love to see it. But yeah, so I'll just explain the whole opening here. What I was explaining is that I'm one of those rats where once I know something, it's impossible to get it out of my head. And I can't imagine being part of the collective mentality of the country, especially people that have money that are invested. Oh my God. Get the fuck away from Disney and all their affiliates because it's losing. I saw down almost 4%. Oh my God. Get the fuck away. And what's going to be harder is watching their content and not talking about it and not looking for somewhere to talk about it. Um, because you ought to be pissed at anything Disney, I mean, and think about it. This touches things I care about, and it will impact my desire to like give my attention to that. If it's shown on Disney, ESPN, ABC, like I'm more likely to be like, fuck it, I could fall asleep. I could do something else with my time, right? if I can't find to watch it somewhere else. Makes me want to not pay for YouTube TV because part of my money is going to them people. That's how I feel. And if that's how I feel, and I don't have kids, I'm not a teacher. I don't hardly leave my house. Okay? But I know that there are a lot of people that are like, Jared, I'm the same fucking way. Once I found out Coke was bad for me, I stopped drinking fucking Coke. Once I found out how bad Walmart was, and I stopped going to McDonald's too, when I found out how bad their food is. And I stopped going to Walmart when I found out how bad they treat their employees and how they dissuade people from joining unions. And hey, that's the same reason that I stopped going to fucking Starbucks, is because they were anti-union. I mean, look at them now. I couldn't be prouder. The Starbucks, the two Starbucks close to me are really nice, and they're union owned. They're union run. Yeah, it's fucking rad. What they're capable of when, like, think about you've been in a non-unionized fucking coffee shop. I, there are two stones throw from my place. It's light years different. Mm-hmm. Yep. Those people are living with purpose. Oh, that sucks. Angie said so they had disappeared this mom from Guatemala months ago. She got sent back. She died after being sent back there, only there a few months. No access to her medication. It's tough. So I want to make sure if you hear what I just said and you're like, "Hey Jared, I agree. I feel the same way." That was the whole reason to tell you that is I know I'm not the only one. That once you come across some information and you're like, "Man, you're kind of damned if you do." You know? I'm not religious, but I 1,000%, I 1,000% will will be impacted by the decisions made by this administration. And I'm not on food stamps. I'm not on Medicare or Medicaid. And I think about all the time all the people that already lost their food stamps in July. And what will happen? A marker is more people asking you for money, right? Asking, I need money for groceries. That's how you know people lost their food stamps. Is because it's going to be a little hard to feed ourselves, especially with the skyrocketing cost of food. And then uh, again, in the right now, about this time, the last couple weeks of September, is when people get their letters in the mail that says what your Medicaid status is for 2026. And if 15 million people ain't about to get a letter in the fucking mail that takes a scenario in which they were able to survive. Let me explain this to you. Okay? If you have Medicare, Medicaid, generally your income's under like $1,500 a month. Keep in mind, those people don't get to live for free. So out of that 1,500 comes rent. You still got to keep the lights on and the bills paid. Oh, you better believe it. They need all the assistance they can get, like food stamps and free health care and shit, because they're destitute, friend. They're beyond destitute. The difference between life and death was their ability to pay for things like their medication. For some people, there are some people that are like post cancer that the drugs they take are like life saving and considered experimental and otherwise thousands of dollars, if not for Medicaid covering it. What are those people supposed to do? Now, keep in mind that's going to happen for millions of people who largely can't do anything about it. They're largely either like homebound or bedbound or disabled, so they got a wheelchair or cane. That's another big marker of poverty. People that are in a wheelchair and walk with a limp, do you know why? I know, because they couldn't afford what would alleviate those things. It's a money game. I have friends that have had from their hip down replaced. Like I have buddies that got their legs blown off that are fully able to walk without a limp. What is the difference between them and somebody in a wheelchair? Millions and millions of fucking dollars. What are we talking about? Access to free health care, all of the treatment available, and all of the people that are just making it. One of the major contributors to like Medicaid healthcare is transportation. An actual a van that can you can put your fucking wheelchair in and get to your goddamn doctor's appointment so you can stay alive. They're losing that. They're losing transpo. They're gonna die in their fucking houses. And what makes it even remotely palpable for me, even remotely something I can stomach, is that 70 some odd percent of them voted for it, which we can never fucking do again. And keep in mind, oh, we turned away from that shit quick, just so everyone understands. We didn't like it. We're not going to continue to like it. Democrats overperform in 38 of 40 special elections since the election. That's a marker of people don't like this fascistic shit. As I've said, if you're the president, everybody's on you. Every single body is on you. And Donald Trump, I had a conversation with somebody recently where I told them facts about their money situation. Your payments are this. They're only going to continue to go up, right? So they had about less than $30,000 in debt. You're paying almost 900. You're paying over $900 a month. That number is going to continue to go up, and you're basically maxed out. So if something happens, these credit cards aren't going to do you any good. What we could do is we could stop using them, stop communicating with them, stop paying them. We'll cut your payment down, save you $600 a month. Get out of the debt. Get out of debt in the next few years. Otherwise, it's going to take you better part of 26 years. It's going to cost $75,000, 3 times what you owe. And the person on the other end said, "I hear what you're saying, but my brain is rejecting it, and I am not dissuaded. I don't feel any different. Nothing changed." Like effectively saying what you're saying is bouncing off of me. Na 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 boo boo. And I explained, your goal was to retire and not be paying interest with your retirement money. That was your goal. That's I asked you what your goals were. What are we working together toward? and you said, I'm over 60 and I still have $1,000 a month that I'm pissing away. So you recognize that. And the worst part about it, this is somebody who was like an E6 in the Marine Corps. This is somebody that was like in charge of other people for some period, far more than like a regular person. I think about how what level of importance like a staff sergeant has. And I think about how many people politically that you could just tell them we can't keep doing what we're doing. We cannot continue to afford to kill off all our disabled and all our poor for a handful of billionaires because it doesn't trickle down. And it's time we give up on the ideas of things like trickle down economics or trying to equally disperse income. Okay? We need universal income. Hmm? That's the American dream. Universal health care, universal education, universal housing. Hmm? That's what we need. That's what we need. Continuing to doing what continuing to do what we're doing costs people, and it's hard to stomach the loss of life, except with the notion that 70% of them decided that for themselves. And you know what's crazy is that for the longest time, I thought this country had a problem with suicide. I thought you weren't allowed to do that. And for the record, when you confront people about their decisions regarding this administration and say, you understand that you're on Medicare and Medicaid, right? And you voted for this? Do you know what they say? Good, I'm ready to die. What the fuck? Just because you're ready to go doesn't mean we all have to. Like, what the fuck? Remember, the earliest, most concrete lesson that I can recall is that it's not about me. It is not about me. All right, here you go. Russian warplanes have flown into NATO airspace, and the Czech president says maybe it's time to shoot them down. Okay? Give me a second, I'll share the show. Volodymyr Zelensky is establishing assault forces into Russia. So we kind of knew this was coming. If you've been paying attention, as we try to do, we try to pay attention to the actual front line here of an actual war in Ukraine. What have largely been defensive victories for Ukraine as Russia has assaulted them is now turning into an offensive. Yeah. And then to the surprise of no one, and I think all these stories are connected, and that's how you talk about them, right? Is look, Russian officers are lying about what they're accomplishing, presumably to stay alive, because they're afraid of getting shot in the back. Yeah, hell yeah. And again, the reason we're talking about it, we're showing these stories is Ukraine's going to launch stormtrooper units. Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, set to announce formal recognition of Palestine as a state. So the UK will formally recognize Palestine as a state. Wouldn't it be something if if Ukraine overthrew Russia? Wouldn't it be something? Stormtroopers. Hmm. So, let's talk about small tactical units from someone that was actually in a small tactical unit. We're not talking about we're talking about stormtroopers in terms of the German Imperial Army, correct? Specializes in commando style raids, infiltrating trenches, wiping out the enemy quickly, maneuver warfare, recon, shock tactics. You play as a stormtrooper in Call of Duty Fuck My Life. A British one. Which Call of Duty are you a British commando? Black Ops in World War II. So, not stormtroopers from Star Wars. Okay? How many soldiers have they lost in Russia? So, Dina, are you asking how many Russian military have died in their illegal war in Ukraine? Let's ask how many Russians have died in their illegal invasion of Ukraine? Say it right. 1 million wounded, easily. 1 million wounded, 250,000 dead. And then we would ask how many Ukrainians have died in their defense of Ukraine. Now, what's crazy and what begs for more specialized troops. So I know people have a million questions and are never gonna fucking figure it out without somebody sitting down and saying, all right. So they say anywhere from 30 to 45,000 uh, Ukrainians dead. But here's where I go, oh my God, more than 30,000 missing. So know that, right, right. And Mike is correct. Our question was how many Russians have died in their illegal invasion of Ukraine, and a million wounded, over a quarter million dead. And then when you ask how many Ukrainians have died in their defense of Ukraine, and it says, anywhere from 30 to 45,000 dead, which tells me a 5-to-1 kill to death ratio and tells me that they're already kicking ass and taking names. Okay? Um, but what's striking is the number of missing people, and that tends to happen when you're outnumbered. So, what it calls for is more specialized troops. Hmm. Yep. So this is just like if you're playing any game, you can't produce the same quality of troop and get the different results. You must aim higher. You must have elite forces, commando style forces, breach style. Um, Jesus makes me think World War II style shock troopers. Guys running around with C4, blowing up bunkers and stuff. Hmm. Taking out machine gun nests. More than likely taking out surface to air stuff and disabling comms and espionage and other infiltration tactics. I'm excited. It's a great time to be a Ukrainian special forces. Yeah, yeah. It's because I don't like to play defense. That's why I joined the Marine Corps infantry. Tip of the spear. You know what I'm saying? Sharper than sharp. But yeah, Mike's right. A lot more people have died in the illegal invasion of Ukraine, as they should. Okay? Uh, I wish all invading forces a very fuck you. Specifically, those invading Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. Yeah, yeah. So remember, there was a period of fighting where I clocked Ukrainians at like 50-1. And I was like, wow, Russia's getting their ass kicked in this particular area. This is not good. They need to pull the fuck out. They're getting railroaded. But yeah. Well, what Ukraine did was it utilized drones. And what they did was they made reusable fucking drones that could just hover over a target and drop it and run. So one of the first videos that we saw was literally uh that's a $150 drone. And you just see it like they throw it in the air and a drone and just take off and it'd fly over a tank. What's the tank gonna do? Right? And they drop the first munition on top of the tank and it blows the lid off. And then they drop the second explosive and it blows up inside the tank. And you're like, that $150 drone just destroyed a $30 million tank. The war is going to get flipped upside down because all the people with all the money are going to lose because they don't have the necessary skills that it takes to fight in a war in which I can just fly a drone over your house and drop an incendiary on it. How you gonna sleep, right? Um, yeah, they started by having superior. Um, they had superior real time in the trench fighting leg up, They laid mines. They used drones to destabilize the infiltrating vehicles. And anytime you infiltrate, you stop their tank. The tanks being stopped prevents most progress. Hmm. And when you're playing offense, house to house, defense wins a lot. Defense wins for as someone as someone who has played both offense and defense in house to house fighting. Defense wins a lot. So they're dug the fuck in. Sandbags, good shooting positions, all that shit. Hmm. Yep. They're ready. A glorious turret flip. Yeah, isn't it because the way Russian tanks. Here's my. And I'm not a tanky. So I was anti tanky. If I understand it correctly, the Russian tank, the gun, the actual turret, is a second piece separate from the tank altogether, and it kind of sits on top. And so when you blow them up, the top pops off like a lid. It's not good, but it's just like a ring system, an exposed ring system. So if you ever wanted to know what is particularly vulnerable, the ring system, the ring system around the tank. Their autoloader wraps around outside of the turret. That can't be good. An exposed autoloader? That's fucking insane. But yeah, yeah. See, Donald Trump meets with Putin. Putin decides to intensify his strikes on Ukraine. Okay. Hey, hey, this is your a CEO dies every day watch. I could do a piece of content every day about, oh my god, another CEO got dropped. Holy shit. Here's Russian businessman Alexander Tyunin found dead next to a rifle. Okay. Okay, let me explain in the simplest language possible that you're not blowing your brains out with a rifle. So, hi, I'm somebody that spent way too much of their life with a gun in their hand, and I can tell you right now that you're not blowing your brains out with your M4. It's not convenient. You would have missed and survived, and then had to explain to everyone how you got that scar on your face. Ask me how I know. There's like a 70% chance if you unalive yourself that you do it with a pistol. That's why I'm not an advocate for pistols because I'm a person who observes the laws of big numbers. And 70% of all gun deaths are self inflicted, and about 60% of those are done with a pistol. Do you get it now? Most of the time, you're just gonna blow your own goddamn brains out. Why put the thing you're gonna do it with, right? So no, when they catch someone that committed suicide and they find a rifle, remember me the rest of your life. You're not doing that. You're not blowing your brains out with a rifle. You're not doing that shit. I'm just I'm just making sure you know that's not happening for you. You should not think about it. Don't ever think about it. Don't quit the game yourself. You know what I mean? Make the game finish you. You know what I mean? We gonna pull the trigger with your toe, balance it on your belly button? Come on, man. You have too much going on. You're gonna blow your toupee off. But here's who died. Alexander Tyunin, chief executive of a Russian carbon fiber and composites company affiliated with state nuclear giant Rosatom, was discovered dead on Thursday near his car in the Moscow region. On a road near a forest, hunting rifle and a note referencing long-term depression were found nearby, treating the case as a possible suicide. And according to local media, a note included the phone number of his wife and said the 50-year-old CEO had grown tired of fighting depression for the past 5 years, only getting worse, have no strength left. 20th in a string of sudden or unexplained deaths of senior Russian executives since the start of the war in Ukraine. So, what is happening in Russia is also happening in the United States and in other parts of the world. Okay, and I want to make sure that I say, because there's people out there like Jared's putting himself in danger. Uh, I would never kill myself. I'm too good at the game. First of all, I'm a gamer. Battlefield 6 looks great. I might actually stream myself playing that. That thermal fucking scope is up my fucking alley on that sniper rifle, and I can shoot in a video game. Um, I might actually stream myself doing that. That might be middle-aged man instead of the grandpa. You know what I'm talking about? There's that grandpa that snipes. Hmm. Hmm. So yeah, I want to make sure I use my platform to say here's what I think happened based on available information. Uh, Donald Trump received his marching orders from Vladimir Putin when they met in Alaska, and they got in that car. And I can't remember, was it Caroline Levitt that was in the car with Putin and Trump when they got in it and drove away? And remember when she got out of the car, she was like white as a fucking ghost, like oh my god. And I think that's when Putin gave the texts to Trump that you're going to release these texts. They're in Russian. You'll have to translate them into English, but you'll release these texts. You'll make this person the shooter, uh, and we'll handle the rest. And I think BB had something to do with it too. Why? Because Charlie Kirk was calling what was going on in Gaza a genocide, and he'd called into question Israel, and Israel came out suspiciously. Not only did they post on social media that I remember them saying that Charlie Kirk was the Lion of Israel. What the fuck? They haven't called anybody that. Not even BB. And then BB made a video about Charlie Kirk too, and it's just like, why? He's not an elected official. And it's just like Putin and BB gave Trump the marching orders to have Charlie Kirk killed. Chaos. I am an anarchist. I can spot anarchy and chaos when that's the fucking goal, because that's the fucking goal of of an anarchist is to you got to be able to spot it, right? Of chaos. That's chaotic. That's why they would have Charlie Kirk unalived, is because it will cause chaos. What happened in the wake of Charlie Kirk's untimely or timely, depending on how sick of his shit you were, timely or untimely, demise, multiple uh, school shootings, mass shootings. Hell, there was a mass shooting in Indianapolis last night on the west side on 38th Street. It was on the complete opposite side of the town that I live in. It's 30 minutes or more away. Hmm. Two dead, five shot, something like that. Yep. Yep. It's some people were dissuaded from reaching from the stars. And now it's either live in fear or you're gonna get uh, cooked in a mass shooting. You know. That being said, what about MTG? MTG is great. I went yesterday to my buddy's shop, Mages Comics and Games on the South Side Indianapolis, for their noon Spider-Man pre-release, which capped out at 56 players. Your boy absolutely ripped um, two anti-venom, two spider. My deck was super redundant and super consistent, and I won 5 of 7 games I played in 2 or 3 matches. Won, you know, probably another $30, $40 in product. It was a good time. Went and got Sonic, came back home. I know that you were talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I play Magic the Gathering, and it just so happens that I went and played in the Spider-Man pre-release yesterday at noon. So instead of talking about old, what is it, butch body, bitch made butch body, I how was he chosen to be the shooter on the rooftop? He's a groiper. He and Charlie Kirk had beefed before, face to face. That's one of the striking things about this is that Tyler Robinson had gone in front of Charlie Kirk and told him like you don't argue facts, you just tout bullshit and shout down people that are telling you the truth and just continue to spout your bullshit. You're not looking to debate. That was pretty much words Tyler had said to him. So he'd already beefed with him. Anarchy, anarchy. I don't know what that means, but I love it. Yeah. I want the healthcare system to break. And I want everyone that works in healthcare to go to work and treat people because they love their job and because they swore an oath, the Hippocratic oath, right? And say fuck these healthcare companies, fuck what it costs, pay if you can. Otherwise, treat them and get them the fuck out of here and get them on with their lives. Yeah, we got work to do, you know. A jam for bleach blonde bad built butch body. Yeah. So what I think happened is that uh, I'm sure that Israeli, I'm sure Mossad was able to get to Tyler Robinson through his dad being a law enforcement officer. Israel was easily able to find who that shooter was supposed to be. They made him. Remember, George Zinn, the guy that confessed immediately, did it so that Tyler Robinson could get away. And I'm asserting that Tyler Robinson didn't pull the trigger. Where's the round? Because the round that was, if there was a round fired, which again they didn't find one, it would have blown Charlie Kirk's fucking head off his goddamn body. And instead, they're like, oh, he absorbed a 30 out six bullet. Yeah, bleach blonde, bad built butch body. hmm So, yeah, I'm still a child. I play Magic the Gathering. hmm Took the day off. It was great. Hey, a broken clock is right twice a day. I love to see it. Don't believe MTG takes money from APAC. Yeah, they don't want her because she's disloyal. And that's mostly what you'll see is people who don't fall in line, they die, and the people who do die. Pentagon warns European diplomats of aid cuts to Baltic states. So Donald Trump is trying to weaken the countries near Russia to make it so that Russia can move on from Ukraine and just invade other countries. Yeah. So remember, they follow the money, right? So you know why they're shooting the people in the boats to disrupt the quality of life in these small, impoverished fishing communities, to push them off the land so that they can land troops and take Venezuela. Like they're trying to push people off of the beaches by destabilizing these fishing communities. That's what their purpose of using the military to shoot these boats is, under the guise of of national and international security. Mhm. Yep. And remember, it just takes time that we don't feel like we have, but we do, because Donald Trump's gonna die in the next. Whew, yeah. Yep. And remember, I said they're gonna have to walk it all back, and if they don't, a bunch of people are under the threat of dying. And again, I'm telling you, the first fucking few weeks of January are gonna be real rough, real fucking rough. Because if you are like me, listen, I have had elderly grandparents who are dead and dying. Okay, who's I spent 20 years of my life being around them people after I graduated high school. Okay, once they're like 75, they ain't going nowhere. You're going to them most of the time when you see them. Holidays. So what do you think happens after Christmas and New Year's? Right, that person goes, takes their, rolls their little walker down to pick up their meds, and usually it's $0 because they've got Medicaid, and this time it's 4,900 bucks. Do you think they're just gonna? And this ain't no talking no shit on pharmacies. Good RX ain't gonna do it. Just letting everybody know. That's what I'll be thinking about. This sounds like an indicator that war is coming, and also that Donald Trump is a traitor, cutting off aid to our allies. But this signals that war is coming, because only a bad businessman. Christmas will be lit this year. Yeah, everybody's gonna be real happy, because here's what I know that not a lot of people know. They can take your SNAP away, but they can't take your Medicaid until January 1st. So you'll get a letter in September, excuse me, it tells you what your Medicaid status will be January 1, and then you get from October 15th to December 7th to enroll in healthcare that goes into effect on January 1st. But the healthcare you have right now will be into effect until December 31st. So, like I said, the clock is fucking ticking, dog. As a fan of people, as someone who wants to see people live out their lives, their full fucking life, right? If you can't reach your potential, at least reach your max distance, right? I want to see people uh, live the full length of their life and it not be abridged by the environment or self-imposed. Like I hate seeing people vote against their own self-interest, right? But again, there's an experiment that was done back in the day, right? Professor walks in a classroom of 400 kids and says, today's the final, uh, but y'all got an A. Everybody got a 95 across the board. Congratulations. Maybe I'll see you in another class. Hands shot up. Hundreds. Whoa, 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 whoa. I studied for this. Okay. And? I mean, we stayed up. We had study groups. And? Some people didn't study for this. And? Shouldn't they get a worse grade? But I decided to give everybody a 95. But there are people that are going to get a 95 that didn't study at all. For the record, let me pause. I'm that guy. Unpause. So know that there are people who didn't study for this test that don't deserve a 95. And hundreds of kids agreed with that. So many, and so the professor decided to take a vote. And most of the people in the class wanted to fucking chance it and actually take the fucking test because they didn't want the guy to their right and their left to also have a fucking 95. So it's not like we haven't seen this over and over and over again over the course of life where people will cut off their right hand to spite their neighbor just so they don't have to wave to him. Hmm? Ask me how I fucking know. Ask me how I don't know the name of any of the men in my neighborhood unless it's by force. Not because they're social, because they come over and talk to me and want to get to know me. No, they don't want to fucking get to know me. I don't do my own yard work because I'm a disabled veteran. And once they find that shit out, then they just feel like shit, and then you just never hear from them. Hmm? That's how men will operate. Hmm? That's why I tell people come be my fucking neighbor. There's houses for sale all around my neighborhood. You know what I mean? I'll grow a garden. I'll give you my yield. That'll save you money. I'll put solar panels on my roof, enough to like power the neighborhood. I'll share it. You know what I mean? But yeah, now politicians. I seen Chuck Schumer standing behind somebody screaming into a microphone. Yeah, I'm that dickhead. Hmm. The hardest classes I ever took were art classes. You can't just study for an art class. You actually have to produce. Hardest classes I ever took were like social classes. Like economics was difficult to understand for me growing up. Full disclosure. Just companies will max profit and not give a fuck about their employees and see them as replaceable and shit. And I just don't see us as replaceable. I think we're all fucking unicorns. It sucks that other people don't see it that way. They just think we're all paper mache and like nothing and mush. Donald Trump snaps at David Letterman. Too bad Letterman's retired. I was fucking despised. Kids around me did everything they could to distract me and undermine my intelligence, and I succeeded despite that. That's what I think. Now, I think one of the important stories to come out in the last 24 hours is that Tom Homan, this gutless frog, Trump border czar, reportedly accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. Bob said, Bob said, "Everyone ready for the rapture?" Listen, having already been through the rapture, because I was one of those children that read um, the Left Behind series. A lot of these people don't understand the rapture. All these people that are cheerleading what Israel's doing in Gaza, all these people that are like pro Russia and like, you know what I mean? All these people that are like cheerleading the death of people that can do them no good. They don't realize like it doesn't take the rapture doesn't take everybody. It just takes a lot of good people, kids mostly. This administration killed a federal corruption case. And remember, uh, the pendulum swings the other way. The Democrats will be in charge. They'll right this wrong. Trump publicly pushes Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute his political foes. Isn't this like the 10th, the 20th rapture point in history? Yeah. Yeah, we've been. Dude, that doomsday clock is just. You know what I'm saying? Like, the imperialists, the expansionists. A lot of fucking backstabbing. Gonna be real honest with you. I'm not really good with all the backstabbing. All the turncoating. Man. But yeah, in terms of small tactical units, shock troopers. This allows you to have like an IT specialist, like a drone specialist, uh, explosives specialist, an infiltration specialist, somebody that can like speak multiple languages and can just put on a wig and change outfits, and all of a sudden they blend the fuck in, and you know what I mean. You need people like that, and then you need like a small team leader, somebody who's just receiving word from the top, dispersing word, giving a series of orders, helping execute a mission, has a general grasp on what everybody else is able to do, and is the 0369, by the way. Nice. That's like a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps Infantry, and so an 0369 has to have like knowledge of everything, knowledge of all weapon systems. So the small tactical unit. And again, I'm talking about what they're capable, not what like they actually include, because who fucking knows what these Ukrainian storm troopers are going to actually have. But I'm guessing they have a explosive specialist. They have somebody who's like an IT guy, and those people shouldn't be the same person. Mm-hmm. You want to hear about AOC running for president? Yeah, we talked about it on yesterday's show, Stace. Mm-hmm. Either Senate, either Senate or President. No words come out. Remember during this that J.D. Vance joked about killing American civilians uh, after Jimmy Kimmel got yanked off the air. And that, remember, J.D. Vance wrote Project 2025. And also, if you're looking to say fuck Google, might I suggest Google Opera, or not Opera, not Google Opera. Sorry, it's just called Opera. Now I fucked it all up, but it's called Opera and Reader Mode. If you ever wondered why, like why should I switch to Opera? I'm not a fan of paying for the news. So I don't have a Wall Street Journal. I don't subscribe to the Indy Star, and it's not because I don't respect journalists. It's because on Opera there's a button that says Reader Mode where I can just read any article and bypass any paywall, including the Indy Star, including Wall Street Journal, Washington Post type shit. So one of the reasons that I tell you, what up, Alice? One of the reasons I tell you to get off of fucking Google is because Google is working with this administration. They're building infrastructure. So is fucking Microsoft. I haven't resubscribed to Office 365. Asia Wilson in the WNBA has been named the MVP. That's her fourth time being named the MVP. Current GOAT. Lots and lots of Swiss made AT4s. Mm-hmm. You know why I don't like AT4s? Single use. It's terrible efficiency. And I think one of the things video games failed to do was adequately provide um, anti-air, anti-vehicle, anti-tank, anti nest, like a machine gun nest. So what you have, and keep in mind, I've been out for 20 years. So 20 years ago, in my eyes, the AT4 was the low man on the totem pole. Like that was, ah, shit. An AT4? Alright, I guess. Up from that, obviously, was, oh, fuck. I forgot. I had the SMAW, the shoulder mounted assault weapon. So the SMAW was basically, and I say basically pretty fucking loose, the SMAW was the upgrade from the AT4 because you could just reload it. Mm-hmm. And the SMAW had multiple different kinds of rounds, so you could have like a round that you shoot it and it explodes at a certain depth, right? So it'll hit a target, but until it reaches a certain depth, it won't blow up, right? Um, so they never put that in a game where you could just have a reloadable, not a big rocket launcher. Yeah. No, I was Bob. I am not an Indiana uh, University football fan, and even though I am one of those kids from Illinois, Indiana, I was watching the University of Miami versus Florida last night. So I did not watch. I figured I'd watch it before the game started today. Hmm. Yeah. So remember, AT4, one shot. You got to throw that whole big thing away afterward. It's like the size of a golf club bag, um, a little heavier when it's empty. And then up from that was the SMAW, and then up from that was the TOW in my unit. So We had the AT. You had to be able to shoot a AT-4. Shit, you shot that at advanced infantry school, like before you get to the fleet. But once you get to the fleet, they just laugh about the AT-4. They're like, you'll never see an AT-4 again. You'll be using a small, and then you can carry a small in a backpack, just a regular backpack, which is rad, right? Imagine to be able to have like a whole ass anti-tank, anti-vehicle, anti-air weapon that you could just put in a backpack. And then the javelin is for bigger stuff, and it gives you the wire guided, so where you could actually fly the missile or the rocket or whatever. Um, the javelin can be reloaded, and it has the ability for you to guide that missile. And then there's the tow. So tow, jav, small, AT-4, and C4, and water charges, and firing wire, and det cord, and that was my baby. So it's kind of fun, like to be a video gamer and get out of the Marine Corps and play like Call of Duty, and they've incorporated my job into video games. And like Call of Duty was my shit for a long time, but then you realize how toxic it really is, right? To just that's what you're doing with your spare time is playing like super violent shoot 'em up games. I still like play those games, but I try to get away from them and try to do more constructive activity, right? But that's not to say if Battlefield 6 doesn't kick ass that I'm not gonna fucking play the hell out of it. You know what I mean? I'm still just a gamer. I think the big story today is going to be that the DOJ has kind of admitted that it can't tie Deshaun Foster. UCLA got fired yesterday. I'll say this and try to say as little as possible. I uh, I met a fellow Marine that works for their staff, and I tried to socialize with the guy in person and on the internet, and he was cold to me, and that's choices. Everybody makes choices, and the choices that you make are indicative of your leadership. And I've been treated pretty poorly by other veterans, and I know why. I know why. Because I was in the Marine Corps infantry, so you could just treat me like shit because that's what I'm used to. Mhm. So it's not surprising that the Sean Foster, if that's the head coach at UCLA football that got fired, not surprising. I think the Stinger was before me. Gavin Newsom has signed legislation banning ICE agents from wearing masks in California. So know that what this means is that moving forward, it will be easier to identify ICE agents, and also it will be easier to arrest them when they defy the law and show up wearing masks and shit anyways. Remember that they're Pete Buttigieg is going viral, having predicted Donald Trump's free speech crackdown. Yeah, so Stacy, you'd asked about AOC running for prez. Here's the article. I want to say this is from yesterday, where it's pretty clear she's either running for Senate or running for president. And this was quite not a day ago. But the FBI is going to categorize trans people as nihilistic violent extremists. it is still, it is still, um, how do I say this? It's still like wildly inappropriate to target people's, inappropriate, it's not even the word, illegal. Like the ACLU ought to be all over this, right? Labeling trans people as violent extremists is fucking stupid. Not only is that not like a thing, right? The FBI doesn't do that. Remember what I keep telling you. The FBI, the feds in the United States are not going to label an organization as a terrorist organization domestically. You don't want to do that because the pendulum swings the farther in the other fucking direction. So again, I want to keep pointing this out. If they keep saying like we're going to call Antifa a terrorist org, so when you get into office, then they ban the KKK. Do you see how that's not good? Look, there's a joke. There's a joke that I heard. Stuart Huff, one of my favorite comedians of all time. Okay, Stuart Huff tells this joke, and it means something to me because I was stationed in nowhere, North Carolina, driving around in the middle of nowhere, and sure as shit, I've seen stuff like this in my time. Okay, so Stuart Huff tells a joke about. He says, I got off of 95 in North Carolina to get some Carolina barbecue, and if you know, you know that sweet Carolina barbecue is for real, for real. Okay. From what I understand, it's they cut their barbecue sauce with sriracha and honey. That's what I heard. Don't tell him where you got that information. Um, so he stopped, off on I-95 to get me some Carolina barbecue, and the marquee out in front of this barbecue place said no hard R's, N word, no Ners, white people only, open whatever, Monday through Sunday, 9 to 9. And he said, I had half the mind to go into that business and tell them exactly what I thought about that sign out front. But one of the things that I noticed is that there weren't hardly any cars in the parking lot. And I thought it ought to stay that way. And a lot of people, when I tell this joke, a lot of people, one, because it really did happen. He really did see this on a marquee in front of a barbecue establishment in North Carolina in 95, swears up and down. And he says, people's response to me telling this joke is, why didn't you go tell them? Hey, that's killing your business. You can't be putting that fucking sign. You can't be putting no N word allowed. You can't do that. It'll destroy your business. And he said, one, I have no doubts that they are finding the fuck out. Right? I know that they're I know that they're wrong, and they know they're wrong, and it shows. But here's what I want, and I agree. This is how I feel about the First Amendment, about free speech. If that's how that org feels, I want to know. I want to know. I want you to put it on your fucking marquee. And I want to be able to make a decision about whether or not I want to give that organization my money or not. So, to all the people out there that are like, they should be forced to take that down, I disagree. I think you should wear it like a scarlet letter everywhere you go. If it destroys your business, then so be it, right? But you should be allowed to do that. Yep, that's free speech. Remember that the First Amendment, your right to free speech, means freedom from consequences from the government. it does not mean that the man to your right and left, or woman to your right and left, or the she or the they them to your right and left, won't have a big fucking problem with what you say and do and confront you over it. And there might be consequences there. That is not explained in the First Amendment. Okay? The First Amendment doesn't explain uh, the government cannot punish you for your speech, but you could get your ass kicked for your words. They they didn't put that in there because it's kind of the way it should be. So when Donald Trump himself, the president himself, says that the coverage of him is illegal, that's a violation of the First Amendment because that's the president. He's not a game show host. He's the guy in charge. And if he says negative coverage of me is illegal, that's him violating the First Amendment. If the government is to use its powers to fire people that speak out against Donald Trump, he's violating their First Amendment. That's the whole point, is that he does not have that ability. Okay? And keep this in mind, he keeps losing. He keeps trying to fire people that have either gone after him in court, Lisa Cook, who he tried to accuse of mortgage fraud, and got absolutely fucking toasted on the internet multiple times, and found out he can't actually sue her. So you get what I'm saying? Like, Donald Trump is on some fuck shit every single day, and that fuck shit train is coming into the station. I'm telling you, it don't feel good. I do not derive joy from getting on here every day and looking at the fucking internet and seeing this administration attacking this group, attacking this group. I see it as a bunch of children lashing out, striking at anything they can that doesn't have strength in numbers. They think that they can divide us all up, and that if they are anti-trans, you'll be anti-trans, and if they're anti-Venezuelan, you'll be anti-Venezuelan. If they, or I should have said, if they're anti-immigrant, you'll be anti-immigrant. If Donald Trump and Bibi break up, Donald Trump's gonna be real anti-Semitic, right? And that's one of the dangers, is like, you remember the saying from our pastor from Niemöller. First they went after First they went after disabled people. First they went out after the disabled and the poor, and then they went after anyone that spoke out. They went after your tired and huddled masses. Hell yeah. Ilian Omar says Charlie Kirk's legacy should be in the dustbin. Hell yeah. In the dustbin of history. Sounds kind of life changing for me. Yeah. For the record, Carolina barbecue, from what I understand, it's like you take their Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, which is, for the record, that's as central United States barbecue sauce as it gets. So you take your Sweet Baby Ray's and you just cut it with 1/4 sriracha, 1/4 honey, um, and honey mustard. So it's like honey mustard, honey itself, sriracha, and barbecue sauce. You mix it all together. And that is effectively like Carolina. I watched them make the sauce at multiple places while I was there. And I was like, oh, barbecue sauce, honey, honey mustard. Sriracha. Mix it all together. And obviously, you can add your garlic powder, onion powder, turmeric, whatever the fuck you add to your barbecue sauce to make it yours. But yeah, I like to tell that story and give away Carolina barbecue sauce recipe because a lot of people seem to think that means that I don't like barbecue. And it's like, no, I still like barbecue. I just would never go to the, I would never do business with that place, right? Personally, me, I'm never pulling in there, except maybe to turn around. And even then, I'm probably not doing that. You know what I mean? But can you imagine the mental gymnastics that you have to go through to support this regime? Holy shit. Your brain had to be tied in fucking knots, waking up every day trying to defend this shit. I'm surprised. I'm surprised Pam Bondi and Carolyn Levitt can fucking stand up without their eyes just rolling in the back of their head and then passing the fuck out from the smell. I guess when you've been changing them diapers for a while, it's becomes easier to manage. Let's check the weather and get out of here. Yeah. What is it good for? Yes, absolute fucking pretzels. I clicked on y'all bot and that's not what happened. All right. Oh, hit it right away too. Okay. Northern Indiana, Michigan, you're on the clock. There is a storm system not anywhere near us, moving, I'm guessing, west to east. So, yeah, if you live in Michigan, if you live in fucking Kansas, you guys are going to have a big ass storm today. And when I say big ass storm, I'm talking like from south central Kansas to the northern border. So southern tip, northern tip, across the state, Oklahoma, across the state. You've got like a U storm, right? So it's shaped like a U and it's moving west to east. So it's like people in Oklahoma are going to get hit twice. That you can see flood warnings in Oklahoma. Looks like there's moisture, Southern California moving in, like into San Diego. Looks like it's going to rain in Washington State, Northern Oregon, Idaho today. Other than that, looks like some moisture in the Gulf of Mexico, off the eastern seaboard. And again, we talk about all the time. I don't know how that moisture off the eastern seaboard are going to interact with those coastal states, but you got to figure that means rain on the eastern seaboard. Large hail threats, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas panhandle on Monday. Tornadoes, large hail threats threatens Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas panhandle on Monday. So the Oklahoma panhandle, yeah, tornadoes and hail. Okay, keep your head on a swivel. Okay. Ooh, look at us, 9:30 on the nose. Enjoy your Sunday. Cali had some gnarly mudslides yesterday. Shit. Free speech was made free. Oh, and I've never said this before, but I have spent my 20 or so years since I've been out of the military using the VA, And I have shook the hands of and made small talk with hundreds of veterans, lots of them from like World War II and shit. I always loved the World War II vets, the Pacific era vets. Um, were not pro Trump, by the way, just so you know. Most of those elderly veterans that had fought in World War II, they didn't like him. They were Union guys. Lots of steel workers, iron workers. That's what was born out of World War II. Is people came home and got into the trades. Um, so it's just crazy that I've interacted with the original Antifa, and they are not about this regime, despite what you may think. I still interact with a lot of people that were children in that era. Those are still my clientele. But those people are in danger, and I think about them a lot. If you think about people that are basically pushing centenarians, about how they'll be sacrificed at the altar of the billionaires. People who did actually help build this country. That's who I'll think about. You know what I mean? Not the CEOs, the people that did the work, the workers. Join a fucking union.